Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CFO Leadership Forum. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our speaker, Rhonda Green, Principal Solutions Consultant, Avid Exchange. We are really excited to have Rhonda with us for a keynote presentation titled AP Beyond Basics, Innovative Approaches for Overcoming Recessionary Challenges. Welcome, Rhonda. Over to you.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. As Nick said, I'm Rhonda Green, Principal Solutions Consultant. Here we go. We're going to go talk about the agenda. So today we're going to talk about looming economic challenges that we're facing, 5 ways the AP department can offset those impacts, AP automation with Avid Exchange, and then at the end we'll leave room for Q&A. Next. So looming economic challenges, really to better understand how businesses are preparing for a potential recession, we surveyed 500 finance professionals at middle market companies in August of last year. And what we found was that 88% of respondents are concerned about the current state of the economy. 70% of respondents told us that their company is adjusting its budget over the next 12 months. And 30% of respondents said that they're preparing for the forecasted recession by reducing or eliminating office space. Next. The effects of inflation are apparent when dissecting spending captured by Avid Exchange Middle Market Index. This index measures the growth rate of the middle market economy based on the quarterly spending habits of thousands of businesses in our AvidPay network. And according to the millions of payments analyzed in the second quarter of 2022, the middle market took its largest leap in spending, both quarterly and year over year, since we developed the MMI in December of 2017. Retail trade spending is the most obvious indicator of inflation's impact, with double-digit year-over-year growth rates in each of the last 5 quarters, including rates of 18.8% and 17% in Q1 and Q2 of last year, respectively. With companies spending so much more on goods and services, they have to make tough spending decisions elsewhere if they hope to maintain that growth. Next slide. So where are businesses refocusing their resources? A third, or 34% of the survey respondents, told us that their company is decreasing their budget for overhead costs, so things like rent, utilities, office supplies. 66% said creating efficiencies is a high priority for their business over the next 12 months. And 72% said growing the business is a high priority for their business over the next year. Next, please. 30% of survey respondents said that they're preparing for the forecasted recession by investing in technology to increase the business efficiencies. 30% said of digital transformation projects that their company is prioritizing adopting automation technology to streamline those internal processes. And 40% said that their business is increasing its budget for technology over the next year. And that's more than sales, which was at 39%, human resources at 26%, or even marketing at 20%. Next slide. According to NCMM, which is the National Center for the Middle Market, An equal number of firms say that inflation has had a positive impact as those who cited an overall impact, a negative impact. It simply came down to a survive versus thrive mindset around price hikes and wage increases. While some were saying that inflation, which is obviously bad for our business, has forced us to raise prices because we must pay employees more and maintain revenue. Others are telling us that inflation allows us to raise prices, pay higher wages, provide better services, and sustain growth. So, how do we use this to win? Much like the pandemic accelerated the move to hybrid and remote work models, record inflation caused by supply chain issues is pushing prices to levels that businesses imagined would still be years away. And much like the businesses who delayed digital transformation in the wake of COVID-19, those fighting the reality of increased costs could struggle to compete with those adapting to circumstances out of their control. So forward-thinking firms who understand the reality that we face are indeed raising prices and passing costs to customers. But it's not to simply sustain revenues for the sake of sustaining revenues. These companies are using still growing profits to do things like pay higher wages that attract and retain top talent in a competitive labor marketplace. Also, they're looking to invest in digital transformation projects that increase efficiency and really offset those higher labor costs. Also, they're looking to develop higher quality products and services that are worthy of a higher price. And if you look at some of the percentages on your screen today, 57% of those surveyed and 58 by the NCMM and 58% surveyed by RSM project revenue increases into the second quarter of 2023. Next. So we now have a poll question. Poll number 1. How is your finance team bracing for a potential recession? Please select all that may apply. So what we have seen is that 29.82% are cutting budget across the board. 36.84% are investing in technology to become more efficient. And 33% are reducing overhead, for example, office space. And that's definitely consistent to what we're hearing when we're out talking to folks. So kind of checks in line with what we hear on a day-to-day. So thank you for that. Next. So let's talk about the 5 ways that AP departments can help offset recession impacts. Next. So ensuring business continuity. The decentralization of finance teams during the pandemic and the current war for talent has really uncovered critical gaps in business continuity plans. So some of the steps that your AP team can take today are things like centralizing important documents and critical operations into a digital home. We heard time and time again after COVID that people didn't have access to their invoice data. They were paying things late because they couldn't approve them via their normal manual process. Also, they weren't able to go into the office to cut checks. So being able to access all of that AP information became very important to them. And with that, you can design custom role-based workflows that can keep those approvals moving so that AP professionals don't have to continually follow up on those invoices or risk them actually getting lost. You can actually even set timers on people with automated workflows, making sure that every invoice is going through the workflow. The different individuals that have to touch and approve each one are doing so in a timely fashion. And really with all of this, with AP automation, it really helps address that potential tribal knowledge challenge that comes with, we've always done it this way, and Sally is the only one that knows, how to do that. Next slide. So real world impact, role-based workflow. So here is just a quick kind of shout out about it. AvidXchange Solutions consultant Jamie Proctor illustrates the power of role-based workflows and how they help finance teams function. And again, they are so important to being able to scale without adding headcount, for instance, and to be able to gain efficiencies with an automated workflow. Next slide. Also, analyzing data to pinpoint savings. Average cost to process invoices equal total AP costs divided by total number of invoices processed. And this is something that you can actually do monthly. We get that a lot when we ask folks, what are you spending today? What is your average cost to process an invoice? Or what is your average cost to process a check? And a lot of times they don't know the answer. So this simple calculation can help you figure that out. But really, you can also do things like look for any unusual increases in recurring payments or charges to repeat vendors. You can also take stock of average time and cost to process. And also, if you're able, you can build custom dashboards and reports that provide actionable insights into spend and departmental performance. Being able to measure things like speed of which invoices are received and approved, timely payments to vendors, any missed cash discounts, anything like that, being able to use that real-time data can help you manage your AP and do it more efficiently. And as I mentioned, one of the big benefits of AP automation is being able to scale and grow without having to add additional AP headcount. Next. Also, those early payment discounts that I talked about really are extremely important. And, obviously, depending on the type of industry that you're in, some vendors may offer more early payment discounts. So it could be an opportunity for you to actually, increase those discounts that could be offered to you. But basically, AP teams should really regularly contact vendors to inquire about early payment discounts. So today, maybe if a vendor is not giving you the discount, maybe that's something that you can be proactive and reach out to see if you paid instead of a net 30 or net 45, if you paid, in 10 days, could you get a 1 or 2% discount? And obviously benefits from these early payments include suppliers. They're being paid earlier than usual, which obviously increases their cash flow. Purchasing companies reduce the cost of the goods and services, and the two-way relationship is improved. The suppliers are realizing that the buyer is putting their invoices on, the top of the burner, if you will. And so they're making sure that those are being processed in a timely fashion. And to capture these benefits, invoices and payments must be processed quickly. And really, that's the way, additional way that AP automation can help. Next, please. And also, and I think a lot of times people don't realize this, but also improving vendor management is a big plus. Buyers understand the importance of their suppliers, but you must invest the time and money to really better those relationships. So you need to do things like setting forth clear and measurable goals that are rank ordered for prioritization. Also, locate the vendors most capable of fulfilling your business's written objectives with the most acceptable degree of risk. So don't always just jump on the first vendor. Make sure you do your due diligence and shop around. Also, the optimal scenario for a contract negotiation is to arrive at mutually agreeable terms that satisfy both your company's needs and your suppliers. And it's often taken for granted that suppliers will perform to the standards of your contracted terms. However, the reality isn't always so rosy. Relying on a manual system is bound to result in headaches, human error, and plenty of time-consuming legwork. The right technology can help buyers and vendors. So again, organize big supply chain data that will extend globally. Also, make better use of that data, organizing it and using it in automated technologies, and being able again to store it in the cloud and having access to it. Save time, reduce manual work, avoid frustration and delays. Also, they're able to manage their master vendor files automatically and avoid those human errors such as incorrect data entries or duplicate files. It also allows them to solidify their supply chain and reach organizational goals and assess performance matrix. So again, steps your AP can take today. Share goals and priorities, identify and select those top vendors, negotiate win-win outcomes, monitor those KPIs and maintain communication, and invest in the right tools. Next, please. We're going to take just a couple of minutes here to talk about AvidXchange and how we can help. Next, please. So AvidXchange, we've actually been around for over 23 years with over 1,600 employees and 7 offices across the US with over 8,000 customers. And we integrate with over 220 accounting systems. So chances are we have an integration with yours. We have, this number has actually greatly increased. It's closer to 1 million suppliers now, but we have, about 965,000 suppliers paid through the AvidPay network over the last 5 years. Over $180 billion in spend under management in 2021, and also recognized as a leading B2B payment network in the middle market. So next, please. So now we're going to take just a minute to talk about AP automation. Next, please. I absolutely love this slide because I think it really gives a good visual representation of what AP automation can do for your business. On the left-hand side where you see the blue boxes, that represents before automation. And as you can see, there's many steps, and these are the typical processes that a manual AP department would go through every day. And that's things like receiving the invoices, opening the mail, routing the mail around, applying that GL account, getting those invoices approved. And again, this could be scanning each invoice in and then emailing each invoice for approval, or sometimes it's even mailing things out to a field office. It could be walking an invoice down the hall for someone to approve. Obviously, none of those are efficient. And then there's also the manual data entry piece where your AP team is having to manually enter invoices. And then on the payment side, the check run process can sometimes take an entire day itself with going through and printing checks to make those payments. And then, is someone physically signing each check, or are you having to stamp it? But when you look at the right-hand side of your screen after automation, you see that we've boiled all the steps on the left side down to just 3. And that's what we call after automation. And really the 3 steps that are left are the 3 most important business decisions. These are things that your company would decide is, how does that invoice need to be coded? But of course, we have tools that can help with that. So you can actually set, for instance, a default GL account per vendor. So maybe you have vendor ABC company that always needs to be coded to this GL account. You can set it up that way so that the system would automatically apply that coding. Also, we've already talked a little bit about those automated approvals where your approvers would receive email notifications letting them know they have invoices to approve, and those invoices are able to go through the whole process so quickly. And then those invoices would be ready for payment. And as you can see, 2.4 times rate of straight through processing improvement. So AP automation makes a huge difference, not only in your increased visibility into your invoices, but also your control around those invoices and just the overall efficiency. Next, please. And with AP automation, getting those invoices captured is one of the huge benefits, where we take that manual process off your plate. So instead of, as I mentioned in the previous slide, having to manually open mail and route it all around and enter it all in, those invoices will be captured electronically. And even we are capturing, header detail. And what I mean by that is things like the vendor name, vendor address, invoice number, date, amount, all of those things would be captured. So eliminating that manual data entry. And then the invoices would be submitted for approval. So they go into that approval process that I've been describing. So it makes the process itself so much quicker, so much more efficient, and you're always going to know exactly where your invoices are in their life cycle. Who has the invoice, who still needs to review and approve it, greatly reducing late payments. Next slide, please. And on the payment side, with payment automation, once those invoices have been fully coded and approved and they've been sent back to your accounting system, then the payment process begins in the accounting system, just like it does today. So you still got all of that control in place where you're selecting what you want to pay when you want to pay it, but simply a payment file will be generated through an integration. That payment file is then sent over, and then it's matching vendors to the vendor database to see which vendors are already in the network. All of the vendor enrollment is done on your behalf, signing up those vendors, and then we're simply executing those payments on your behalf. We would pull those funds from your existing bank accounts, make the payments, but also do things like making sure payments clear in a timely fashion, keeping our eye on all of those payments. And if payment hasn't cleared timely, then we're going to reach out to the vendor. So again, you should look for a real full service payment process, really with automation from beginning to end, to be able to go from invoice capture through payment, critical. And the amount of time that you're able to pick up, the increased visibility, even on the payment side, also increased fraud prevention tools like payee positive pay and things like that. It really is a huge benefit to your organization. Next. All right, there's Q&A.
All right, Rhonda. Yeah, we have a few questions from the audience. First question, is AP one of the first functions that organizations should automate?
AP doesn't necessarily have to be. I mean, there are also tools for AR, for accounts receivable, and other modules, but AP really is a quick, big win, bang for your buck. So usually implementation is quick. So you're able to get, up and running in just a matter of, 6 weeks or so that you can start the process. We'll help notify your vendors. And again, it's a huge win. It gives you all the visibility, and it really, with that visibility, it gives you an increased ability to analyze that AP data as well.
Great. And what challenges do you foresee for the AP department facing the AP department for the remainder of the year?
Well, I think it's kind of the same thing that we've been seeing for a long time. I've been in AP management for many, many years, and I think the struggle continues to be fear of change to some degree. AP is a heavily audited department. Obviously, it's a very important department. A lot of funds are going out the door through AP. And again, with automation, I think people think, oh no, I'm going to have to change my controls or some part of my process will greatly change. And that's not the case at all. If anything, it enhances your control and visibility. So that's a big one. But again, we're talking about, things like reducing office space was one of the things that we talked about earlier in the presentation. And in order to do that, you've got to be able to have an AP team that can work remotely. So the pandemic, again, really exposed that was a flaw in a lot of companies when AP couldn't be processed. They weren't able to pay their invoices. But with AP automation, you've got real-time information, hands-on your data from anywhere.
Great. And how are the companies with which you work reassigning employees?
Love that question, because AP automation is not about just coming in and eliminating positions in AP. Really, it gives those AP professionals the opportunity to work on more strategic tasks. So they're able to, learn other tasks like, account reconciliation or that vendor negotiation piece that we talked about, working with vendors. Also being able to do tasks that a lot of people put off because they don't have time. And that's things like a master vendor file cleanup, taking the time to go through all of your data, making sure that you're inactivating duplicate vendors and that all of your information is correct in your accounting system. And with that increased visibility, there's a lot of good reporting and different reports that can be analyzed in order to make better decisions about vendors. How much are you paying a certain vendor and what is that time frame and can you do better? So lots of things for folks to shift their focus on.
Great. And do most vendors have automated invoicing? It seems cost prohibitive for many small businesses.
I would not say most at all. A lot of invoices are still being, created manually, and they're either being mailed or emailed. We're seeing a huge increase in vendors. More and more vendors are emailing their invoices now to get those processed more quickly. And I think it's just something that vendors are used to now. And more companies offer vendor portals so that vendors can even go out to the vendor portal and upload their invoices that way.
Great. And what recommendations can you make for companies struggling to strengthen their accounts payable department?
Well, I think it all comes down to really having a good foundation, having really good, robust AP policies and procedures in place. If you don't have those, you really need to start, so to speak. I mean, you need to be able to set a list literally of all of your processes and what's required and what's expected of AP, how vendors should be set up, how invoices, should be keyed in, when invoices should be paid. And like I said, automation just takes all of those processes and policies and just strengthens those so that you're not, automating in a manual process.
Great. Well, thanks again, Rhonda, for such an incredible keynote. I also want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. Have a great day.